The material that you're about to listen to and engage with came from our 2017 Missiology Lectures, when myself, along with my colleague Johnny Ramirez Johnson, said we need to do this next 2017 Missiology Lectures on this topic of race, theology, and mission. And we invited Dr. Love Seacrest to engage with us in that process. We wanted to explore the challenging questions regarding racism and ethnocentrism and xenophobia and all of those issues from the perspective of world Christianity with regard to how these realities have existed in many parts of the world, and also as part of the colonial mission endeavors.
It is fascinating to think that the realities we were talking about are not the experiences of one individual or even one society. We're talking about whiteness as a way of defining the world. And the conference and the conference presenters address time and again this epistemology, this way of making meaning. It has also been described as colonization and post-colonization. The question is not about guilt, it's about engagement. It's about what are we going to do with what we have inherited. So the fact that we're having the conversation should not point a finger at you as a listener or viewer.
But these are hard conversations. The conversation about race is one that has been deferred for so long and so often, over and over again. As soon as we get close to having a meaningful conversation about race, we recoil from the pain of it. And so in our lectures, you'll see some of that pain emerge. You'll see some people who have long experienced racism express and declare and name experiences that they have had that have been deeply formative, deformative even. So this conversation is not a pretty one, but we're having it.
As observers, as listeners, you will be engaging, and we invite you to invite the Holy Spirit. The three of us pray a lot about this series. We humbly submitted to God and pleaded for God's mercy to lead us. We are feeble, and combined, we are imperfect, and we have prayed that the Lord will fill the gaps. And the conversation is only a starter. It is in your hands. It is in your community. It is in your family. And most importantly, it is on your knees. I have not had the opportunity to live in a society as you describe, with such a rich tradition, but you do. How did you experience it? What were the feelings as you were coming to yourself and becoming yourself in the context of this complex, rich, old set of traditions?
Maybe permit me to tell a personal story. See, so I come from a village in Palangi, and my family became the first Christian family in that place. So when my father died, nobody thought about education or anything else. The job my elders in the family and the village assigned me was a shepherd of cows. That's all I should do. Every day I should go to a village, to the central place, and collect the cows, cattle, mostly cows and bullocks, and drive them into hills and bring them back. That was the job that was assigned to me. But my mother was the one who resisted it. He said, I will not send my son to do the job, and he should go to school. That's how we ended up in the orphanage. So even during that time, I went to the orphanage when I was grown up, 19 years or so. But before that, I stood 51st in the state of Tamil Nadu in chemistry. That means 99%. It meant the government of India promised to give me scholarship to complete my PhD in chemistry. So I did apply. But the application went to a person whom I described as the first category in the Varna category, and he was a secretary. I did not get it. My name, Daniel, was sufficient for him to put the file away, or what he did, I do not know. The scholarship didn't come. And my father passed away, I had to go. Then finally, I wrote to Indira Gandhi. It was 77, the time of emergency. So I told her, see, I went to school, I struggled hard. Wherever I go, they say no to study. And she intervened and doubled my scholarship. And then then I received a letter from the director of collegiate education, said, choose any college and go and stay. So what I tell is, even the names are enough to put off somebody else. So that is a situation that I personally faced. But how do we deal with it? That is a question that we need to consider more. Thank you. But thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so much. I saw you taking notes while Dr. Kirsteen was speaking. Do you want to address those notes that you were taking in regards to what she said?
No, that was very good. I thought, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the time for our friends.
Okay. What it would be an effective way of evangelizing Indians is the question, one of the questions I received.
There is no one way, there are multiple ways. One of the most effective way which the German missionaries in those days and Tamil Christians found was personal example. And most of the time, the personal examples begin not in the church when we preach, but in homes when we perhaps drink a cup of tea or eat together, walk together, and share a lot of things with one another, joys and sorrows, fears and hopes. When these things are shared and see how the gospel of Christ can respond to each of our situation, that provides an opportunity. Secondly, from the history we know, when Christians understand God, they understand it is from mostly from the biblical perspective. But our hearers give the meaning, not the speakers. So when they hear the word God, it can mean several things. It can be their own deity. It can be a superhero whom they have in their mind. So that means another way of doing it, engage in a cultural research, studying what goes on in the minds and the hearts of other people when they hear words and ideas. And what are the challenges they face when they get this kind of ideas? Then that might help us. Maybe these two at present. There are several other ways too. Thank you.
I have a question for Dr. Kim. How do we, as foreigners, critique cultural norms and construct theologies of liberation without using our own cultural values and thus assert national imperialistic power?
Okay. With great difficulty, and I'm not sure that... and again, we can construct theologies for ourselves in our own context, but I don't think that we should be constructing theologies for anybody else anyway. But one of the things I wanted to point out was that, it's just how things are in India, and that has certain consequences. And when you live in India, you can't entirely escape from those. So unless you keep resisting, you're bound to be falling into some of the ways that you perceive as wrong. But constructing theology with regard to these issues of justice and being wise to them, as Dr. Jeyaraj has just said, and doing our homework and knowing and observing and understanding what is going on in our own society as well as other societies, is very important. I mean, I come from a country that Americans always describe as bound by class rather than caste. And, you know, we recognize from names, from accents and so on, where people come from, what kind of background they have, and we behave towards one another accordingly. That's just as much of a struggle, and we need theologies that engage with that, as well as Indians' theologies to engage with caste.
Thank you. Please.
May I say? See, in India, nobody has ever written systematic theology. They won't do. How can you systematize God, they will say. And but how do you systematize God, understanding of God? But one way that Indians have been doing theology is to take a piece of scripture and explain it in their own context. It is called bhashya in the Sanskrit. In Tamil, they may not tell analytical explanations, but they will tell stories and songs and narratives that are just happening there. So we need to find theology in these situations rather than in a systematic theology way. That whether it's a mother or a grandfather, a son, a daughter, everybody is doing theology. But in that way, it's rich theology. But evaluated from the biblical perspective, we will be astonished to find the beauty that is lying in this living theology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a question here about women. How are women empowered in the caste system to be liberated from marginalization?
To me?
To you, yeah, or both of you.
Okay.
Or in other words, how did your mother come up with a way to reject the orders that she was receiving?
Oh, wow, yeah. Wow. See, in the Tamil culture, there is we have a story. The story is about Kannagi. Kannagi was a woman who was married to a merchant, and the merchant goes into another city, fell in love with another woman, and then squanders his wealth. But she comes home, she accepts him, and gives an anklet, and then tells, go into the city, Madurai, the same Madurai where you heard, and then sell it and come back. But at that time, the queen of that city lost that anklet. A goldsmith went and complained, so without trial, the king killed him, or got him killed. So the woman was furious. She goes there and then just throws the another anklet, and the pearls come out. It seems for the Tamil women, that was the time of liberation. They liberated from the bondage of patriarchy, that we would say. And then she became a deity. That is why no Tamil woman ever wear an anklet made of gold. It is always maybe silver or less than that, but never of gold. But the North Indians will wear it. This is one. Because of the story, Friday became a holy day when people, because she defended her husband on that day, asked for justice on Friday. So we have heroic stories from women in the Indian culture, but that is not the story of everybody else. Even in eating, the woman has to eat last. Because if she sat with her husband to eat, the tradition tells the husband might not be able to walk. What is the connection? You and I can say it is nonsense, but that's a tradition. But Christian women said, no, better you sit and eat together. And you asked how my mother became one. She became a Christian by attending a convention where she was attracted to the idea of God protecting human beings during the wandering, the children of Israel during the wandering, during the day with a cloud and during the night with fire. That is, God is ever present. So when my father forced her even sometimes to worship his deity, that is Mariamman or Kaliamman, in the temples, my mother used to tell us that she knelt but remembered God, remembered Christ, and worshipped him. There's no other way. And there are countless women who do like that. But the moment, because she learned to read and write after I had gone to school. Whenever I came from school, she would ask, what letter did you read? If I say or words, she would draw. So I would write and she would write it after me. That's how she learned to read and write, but fluent. Later on, she became brilliant in writing. She wrote her whole biography and gave it to me before her death. So the gospel of Christ in her name gave her dignity and asked her to stand up against people. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. I was told to remind Dr. Kim that she has her own microphone somewhere in your chair. So.
Sorry. Much good will it do me?
Do not worry, Dr. Kim. We are being managed. So.
Being managed.
Now, a question here about the origins of the concept of caste or castas, like the Portuguese may have pronounced it. The question has to do with where will the origins be in regards to the interaction with the local cultures in India. Was it something that they brought totally from outside, or how it became from race to caste?
Wow, this is a big question. There are at least 10 different theories. It's only theories. Nobody knows exactly. One of them is ritual purity and pollution. That's one way. Who can go to God and who cannot go in God's presence? So, for example, any body fluid pollutes. So anybody who has tears or cries or anything, that is a kind of pollution. And they cannot go into that place. That is one way of doing it, purity and pollution. The second one is gift giving and gift receiving. Who gives gift? That one who gives the gift or gives anything, it can not be a blessing, and that person is superior, the recipient is the inferior one. And that is a second theory. The third theory is a conquest theory. The Aryans, they say, the people of noble, pure race from the Central Asian plateau invaded into India and forced the dark-skinned people to retreat into forests and distant places. So this Aryan and Dravidian is South Indian or Tamil, debate is still raging. So we know from until the 6th century AD or CE, as you would call it, the caste distinctions are not so well known in the Tamil country. How do we know that? The Tiruvalluvar, the person whose name I put, he has a saying, it tells, Pirapokkum ella uyirkum. At birth, everybody is equal. This is not the Sanskrit teaching, it's a Tamil teaching. At birth, everybody is equal. Pirapokkum ella uyirkum. But from 7th century onwards, we have literature that is praising the fourfold category of Varna. And they say even your characteristics are defined by it. So the great change takes place when the local religions became revitalized, the so-called Bhakti religions, when the temples became democratized. So everybody wanted to own wealth of the temple, have access to the properties, and slowly, countless castes emerged, it seems to me.
Dr. Kim, would you like to add something? Or?
He knows much better than me. However it came about, it's so very deep-seated that it's so hard to, well, first to understand and to read, and then also to challenge.
Could you tell us how you first encountered the system when you were in India living and you are there as a missionary with Christian values? You encountered this. How did you respond? How did it happen?
Well, I'm not sure that we really recognized it for what it was, but we were aware of a lot of tensions within this very diverse community of Union Biblical Seminary. And a number of things happened during those years. But one of the most noticeable things was that people stopped eating together in the dining room. Well, they would eat in the dining room, but they would eat at particular tables with particular groups. And understanding what we now understand about caste, that should have spoken much louder to us than it did at the time. And so the practice of eating together and sharing a cup, which is so central to Christian faith, is what can bring and should be bringing different castes together. But if you're high caste and you drink from a cup that has been used by an outcast or lower caste person, you religiously pollute yourself, and then your family will be polluted by association, and the thing is just very difficult to get beyond.
May I add just only another aspect?
Please.
How do we know there is a caste system in this way in modern days? They will ask, the first question is, who are you? If somebody would ask you, then you would tell your name. That is not expected in Indian context, in the Tamil context at least. You would tell the name of your caste. So if it agrees, then deeper conversations will follow.
Wow.
If it doesn't, chalta hai, you go this way, I go that way. So who are you determines. So how do we know who are you? With whom are you married? So marriage and what do you eat? Food habits and what do you do? What kind of work do you do? And you can say, I do this one in the modern times, anything else. Then the next question, what did your father do? We can evade all these things. Then they can say, where did you come from? And regions, these 4 questions are enough. So it is marriage, food and occupation and the origin of your parents. So they are vital 4 points to determine who is who. And the way how we address the people, or how the wife addresses the husband is very different from caste to caste. So they all know that. So anyway.
Thank you. Moving away from pollution to politics, some may say there's no big change. Thinking of Tamil state, where you're originally from, is there a Christian party or are there Christian politicians? And what kind of theological work or political theology are they doing?
There is no Christian political party in Tamil country. When during the time of independence, K.T. Paul, he was a Christian who accompanied Gandhi during the Round Table Conference, and some people insisted we need a separate electorate. But K.T. Paul and his friends decided not to have that, because the fate of the country should be the fate of Indian people at that time. That was the decision they took a long time ago in 1947, in the 1930s. And then 1947, India became independent. But ever since, things have changed drastically, and political parties with extreme views came and went and still are ruling. So how do Christians respond to it? There are churches and theological seminaries where the Christians are taught to stand up for injustice that they or their own people perceive. But in many cases, there are very good Christian leaders in police, in judiciary, in colleges. They do marvelous work. So mostly in students who are living from Christian hostels, and they come up with different views. So for example, to name one, Madras Christian College or Christ University, these places bring in people from different areas and give them a kind of sense of equality and purpose for the nation, purpose for their work. And they are the ones, I think, make a difference. Not necessarily at the big political scale, but wherever possible in their small areas of influence.
Thank you so much. Any last words, Dr. Kim?
I'd just like to add the Dalit Solidarity Network, which you can Google, which campaigns for Dalit rights, and even in the United Nations, this is not recognised as a human rights issue. So this is they've had a lot.
The caste system.
Yeah, caste and the treatment of Dalits is not recognised as a human rights issue. Of course, the government of India has strongly resisted that. So there's a global struggle there as well that people can participate in.
Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand.
you.